Welcome into your PFF Draft Recap, powered by PFF Edge and Elite. It's all about the Chicago Bears today, Sam. After grading every snap for all these guys for 4 straight years, we really liked this Bears draft. Added a lot of talent to the roster.
Yeah, and in particular, their top pick, Quan Smith. It's all about the passing game in today's NFL. And the second most important part of the passing game, obviously after the quarterback, which they secured last year by trading it to get Mitch Trubisky, is coverage. You have to secure the coverage on the back end, and they got the best coverage linebacker in this draft in Georgia's Roquan Smith with the 8th overall selection. This is a guy that had a PFF grade of 90.8 last year. He was our #1 ranked linebacker and a guy that could genuinely be a game changer when it comes to coverage for the linebacker position. I think this is a great pick.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Coverage grade was outstanding last year. I'm right out of the PFF draft guide, 90.6 coverage grade. That is outstanding. And I don't always use linebacker stats when they're targeted in coverage. They can be skewed a little bit by a few passes here and there. But with Roquan, it really tells the story. His career, he gave up 5.7 yards per reception. That is phenomenal because if you just put it against all linebackers in the nation just last year, it would rank 3rd among linebackers with at least 40 targets. That's his career number, and it shows up on film. We've seen plays where he was 20, 25 yards down the field making plays on the ball on wide receivers. I think he's phenomenal at working downhill on underneath routes. That's why that 5.7 is so low, because he just flies to the football on crossing routes and just makes the tackles, shores up the tackle. He's one of the best tackling linebackers in the entire draft.
That's one of my favorite parts about his proficiency in coverage, is that he's good in all areas and makes an impact across the board. He can turn and run with slot corners and get in the way, deflect passes away on those guys targeted deep down the field. Very few linebackers can do that, even at the NFL level. He can also make all those plays on the underneath stuff, whether it's crossing routes coming in front of him. He understands the angle to attack those and just drill those for no gain, whether it's locking in on running backs being thrown swings or screens out of the backfield. He does get dinged at times by people who don't like the fact that he's a relatively undersized linebacker. He's not 250 pounds, but he doesn't need to be, because he's so quick at reading, diagnosing these plays, that he beats blockers to the point anyway. These guys can't get out and get their hands on him because he's already in the backfield making these plays and changing the timing of these swing routes because he's so quick to destroy those plays.
You saw that all the time. I mean, you talk about the speed and the quickness too, but the ability to quickly diagnose screens and all over the field. So we always talk about coverage, but he is outstanding in the run game as well. Number 6 in the draft class, run stop percentage of 13%. And when he blitzed, only 54 blitzes, but came away with 8 sacks and 22 total pressures. So it's one of those things where coverage is the main part of our grade for him, and that's why he was our #1 linebacker. But when you're good at the other things too, and you put it all together, that is a true 3-down linebacker at the next level.
Yeah, tackles are the stat that everybody still loves for linebackers, but they don't tell a good story. You can make a tackle down the field and it's not a good play, you just happen to be the guy that ended it. What we like to look at instead is defensive stops. Did you make a tackle at or around the line of scrimmage? Was it a win for the defense on the play? Roquan Smith was 2nd in the nation in defensive stops last year. Only Leighton Vander Esch had more, and Leighton Vander Esch outweighs him by like 30 pounds. So this is a guy that, despite his small frame, still makes an absolute ton of plays, both in the run game and in coverage. He makes more of an impact in terms of winning for the defense than any other linebacker.
And then we mentioned his tackling. He only missed 3 all of last season. And you take that number that you just mentioned, stops, and compare it to missed tackles. Take a look at this graphic and just how good he was. He had 12.3 stops per missed tackle. That was #1 among all linebackers in 2017 by a wide margin. We see number 2 at 9.5, 9.4, 8.7. Kind of dominated this number. So he got to more plays and he finished more plays, just doesn't leave a whole lot of negative plays on the table.
And that shows up when you look at his tape. We talked before about the way he flies to the football. He gets out to the edge to stop runs, to stop screens, to stop quick passes out of the backfield. But what's truly amazing is that he can go at full speed and still avoid the cutback lane from those running backs, still avoid those guys pulling a juke move on him and leaving him grasping at air. He somehow has the ability to break down in an instant and still make that tackle despite coming at 1,000,000 miles an hour towards that guy. It's incredible to watch.
Last year we had Rueben Foster, who's dealt with a whole lot of off-field issues, but on the field was just a spectacular 3-down type of athlete like this. Roquan and Rueben Foster both have that ability where you have this athlete in space, and you're like, all right, he can hang with this guy. There's not a lot of linebackers that can do it. Luke Kuechly can. There's a few guys in the NFL that can. This draft class had a few more, but then once you get into that second, third, fourth round of linebackers in this draft, it's like, if they have Saquon Barkley in space, they're done.
Yeah.
Roquan's not one of those guys. So I love the addition. And then big picture for the Bears, coming into this offseason, major question marks in the secondary, but they did a really nice job tying that together in free agency, not going into the draft with major needs in the secondary, and having the ability to make a pick like this, which does just help that entire back seven.
Yeah, when we talk about shoring up coverage, it isn't just about getting a corner, getting two corners. You need to be good across the board because the offensive weapons can come from anywhere. So your back seven all needs to be able to cover because the offense can go so many receivers wide, and a guy like Quan Smith may not be as valuable as a number one shutdown corner, but they've already taken care of that need. He is still a very valuable player, and we saw last year with a linebacker like Deion Jones, he went on a run of 3 or 4 games consecutively where he was the deciding factor in those games.
The closer, Deion Jones.
Game-ending interception to take one game away, eliminating Greg Olsen against the Panthers, going one-on-one with Todd Gurley in the playoffs against the Rams, and breaking up a pass for Sammy Watkins in the end zone in that game as well. I mean, he was deciding games at the tail end, so he may not be as valuable every down as the number one corner, but he can make an impact.
How does Quan Smith compare to Deion Jones?
Bootleg Deion Jones.
That's good enough. I like that pick for the Bears. Let's go to round 2. James Daniels, the center out of Iowa. This makes for an interesting situation now with the Bears' interior offensive line. On paper, looks pretty good. You had Bradley Soule kind of slotted in at the left guard spot. A lot of question marks there with Josh Sitton being released. But now maybe you can put Cody Whitehair at left guard with James Daniels at center and Kyle Long at right guard. That's a pretty good interior for the Bears.
Yeah, that's, I think, their obvious trio to shore up that interior, and I think that could be a very good interior. James Daniels, one of those incredibly athletic centers, moves extremely well, particularly on outside zone plays. He's one of those guys that can make all of those blocks, quickly get around defensive linemen when he needs to, and execute that particular blocking scheme flawlessly, and the Bears do run a lot of that.
Oh, he's fantastic. I mean, when you look at his high-level blocks in the run game, and it's one of the first things we like to look at with the center because it's pretty much the most difficult block that they have to make, getting around that nose tackle on outside zone. James Daniels does it very, very well. I don't want to call him a finesse player at this point. He is only 20 years old, but he does lose to power just a little bit. But I think when you tie that to the fact that he is a little bit younger and can get bigger and stronger, I think you can shore that up just a little bit. We've talked about center value a lot on a lot of these videos, and when it comes to their run blocking versus their pass blocking and how many plays they're really involved in the run game versus in pass protection. I mean, Daniels was one of those guys who had an 89.1 run block grade last year, which is outstanding, but only a 69.9 pass blocking grade. It's only a handful of pressures that you give up. They're really detrimental when you do give them up. But is it that bad to have a grade that low, similar to what we saw with Jason Kelce last year with the Eagles?
Yeah, I think that is one position in football where if you're going to carry a player that isn't great at the passing game aspect of it, center is the position to do it because the difference between an elite center and a poor center when it comes to pass blocking is maybe 10 plays in a season. Now, okay, those 10 plays are going to be significant. It's going to be quick pressure or significant pressure right up the middle, maybe the worst place to get pressure, but it's less than 1 per game. And to offset that, you're going to have a whole load of plays per game where they're executing their run assignment much better than the guy that you could have had instead.
Yeah, so we really like Daniels there in the second round as well. Their second round pick, Anthony Miller out of Memphis, another pick that we really, really liked. And Miller first caught my eye 2 years ago with Paxton Lynch when Paxton Lynch was getting ready to get drafted, and Miller's only a sophomore, and he just was the best player on the field. He looked like the best receiver at Memphis, and he was that way for 3 straight years, extremely productive, and he can win outside, in the slot, in all different types of ways. I love the versatility that Miller brings, even as a sub-6 foot receiver.
Yeah, he reminded you a little bit of Sterling Shepard from the
Yes.
New York Giants. I'll go one better. I think he reminded me of a poor man's Odell Beckham Jr.
Whoa.
A guy that...
Same team,
exactly. Who can do everything and does play bigger, I think, than he is. You know, he's smaller than Odell Beckham, and he's definitely not that good, but he does a lot of the same things extremely well. And what's, I think, really interesting is how effective he was as a slot weapon in college. What we're discovering when our analytics guys dive into these numbers, targeting the slot actually has a higher expected points added, an EPA, than targeting outside receivers. It is maybe the most undervalued position or area of the field on either side of the ball, both slot receivers and defending the slot. So if you can get a guy to do that, you're in really good shape. And in particular, guys that have done it before in college, both defending and running from the slot, are the ones that translate the most easily to the next level, which is logical. If you've done it before, you're going to be better at doing it again. And if you look at Anthony Miller's passer rating when targeted in the slot, it was 149.1 last year. So obviously a perfect passer rating, 158.3. 149 is not far off perfect.
It's pretty close. So you're telling me Miller will project better in the slot because he's done it before, and that's the easiest transition at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that you think can play outside as well, play both. But at the very least, you should have an absolutely devastating slot weapon, and then you can see what he can do on the outside in addition to that.
Yeah, that's why I compared him to Sterling Shepard. He was the best slot receiver in the draft 2 years ago, but could play outside. I think Miller does have those skills as well. And then I just love the way these Bears playmakers are shaping up right now, man. It's Allen Robinson on the outside. Who knows what you're going to get from Kevin White, but that's why they continue to add more playmakers there. Taylor Gabriel, a similar skill set to Anthony Miller. Miller led the draft class in yards on screen passes, 288. That's kind of similar to Gabriel's skill set, but all sorts of weapons for Mitch Trubisky now, and Miller just adds to the mix.
I mean, Mitch Trubisky was playing dramatically better at the end of last season when they took the training wheels off. They started letting him actually play quarterback, not just glorified game manager. Now they surround him with a dramatic addition in terms of weaponry. Plus, they brought in a new coaching staff that has the same kind of ideas that we saw in Philadelphia last year in terms of run-pass options, making life easier for your quarterback. It would not shock me if this offense suddenly started looking very good and Mitch Trubisky looked every bit a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, so we love those first 3 picks, and then beyond that, rounding out the draft class, Joey Iyiegbuniwe. Oh, no, I messed it up. Iyiegbuniwe. He's just going to be a linebacker that adds some depth there.
Joey I.
Joey I. Can we just go with Joey I?
Like the big V.
I practiced season. And it still got all screwed up. He had an 82.5 PFF grade last year. He declared early, was a bit surprising, but he still gets drafted in the middle round. Add some depth at linebacker. I think another interesting pick is Kylie Fitz in the 6th round, a guy who in 2015 looked like he was on this trajectory to become maybe a top round type of edge defender, but battled a lot of injuries and certainly worth a look late in the draft. And then Javon Wims, a big, huge target at Georgia who moves pretty well for a 6'4 receiver. So altogether, very nice draft for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, this draft really was all about those first 3 picks. I think all 3 of them are excellent additions and continue this Bears upward trajectory.
So there you have it, your Chicago Bears PFF draft review. Go check out information on all of those draft prospects in the PFF Draft Guide, all part of your Edge or Elite package.